She stood on the porch of the Western Star Saloon, her feet inches from the edge. The wind tousled the fiery red of her hair, whipping strands across her face as she gazed out at the dusty street. She was beautiful, this much was certain. But the hard, cynical lines around her eyes hinted at a weariness that seemed at odds with her youthful face. For 5 years, she had waited for this moment, 5 years of scraping by in a life she despised, dreaming of a different existence, one that would take her away from this suffocating city and the stifling expectations that came with being the daughter of the most prominent family in town. When she was 18, she had done the only thing she could to carve out her own destiny. She placed an ad in the personal section of the Roundup, a popular Western magazine seeking a mail-order bride. She didn't expect a reply, not really. It was more of a defiant middle finger to her father, a way of telling him she wasn't going to accept his choice of a husband for her. She'd make her own decision, damn the consequences. And then he'd written to her, Samuel Clayton, a rancher from Montana, a man who, according to his letter, had been born and raised on a ranch, a man who was as rough and rugged as the land he inhabited. They'd exchanged letters ever since, their bond deepening through the written word, their thoughts and dreams taking flight on the wings of paper and ink. He was everything her father was not, kind, strong, honest, and when he proposed, she said yes, a foolish, reckless, impulsive yes. Her father disinherited her the moment he learned of her intentions, cutting her off with only the clothes on her back and the money in her purse. So here she was now, all grown up and out of options, taking the last of her money and stepping off the stagecoach. She'd had a brief glimpse of him when she first arrived in town. A tall, broad-shouldered figure with unruly black hair and piercing blue eyes that seemed to bore right through her. He'd looked at her for what felt like an eternity, his expression unreadable before turning and disappearing into the saloon. As she stood there, the swinging doors opened and he emerged. Time seemed to stop. All she could do was stare as he walked toward her, his eyes never leaving hers. There was something about his gaze that both intrigued and unnerved her. It was as if he already knew everything about her hopes, her fears, her dreams, her regrets. Samuel, she whispered, the name feeling foreign on her tongue. He stopped in front of her and she looked up into his face, searching for any resemblance to the man in her memories, the man from her dreams. What she found instead was a stranger. His features were harsh, his jaw set, his eyes cold and calculating. He was handsome in a rugged sort of way, undeniably masculine, but there was something in his demeanor that put her on edge. "You're not Samuel," she said, her voice barely a whisper. A cruel smile spread across his face. "Who's asking?" She took a step back, her hand instinctively going to the revolver tucked into the front of her skirt. She'd never been good with guns, but desperate times called for desperate measures. I thought you were Samuel Clayton," she stammered. "And who wants to know why?" he asked, his voice a low growl. She hesitated, torn between fear and defiance. Why indeed? Why had he come to this God-forsaken town? What was his game? Then she remembered the letters, the ones they'd exchanged, the ones that had become her lifeline to sanity. Had they been real? Or had he been playing with her all along? As if reading her thoughts, the man laughed, a harsh, humorless sound that echoed in the street. "You came here believing in fairy tales, little girl," he said, taking a step closer. "But this is the real world, and in the real world, dreams don't come true." With that, he turned and walked away, leaving her standing there on the porch with the revolver in her hand and the setting sun painting the sky in hues of orange and red, a fitting backdrop to her shattered dreams. She never reached the ranch. No one ever found her body in the dry gulch outside of town. The only trace of her existence, a single rose left on the grave of an unknown woman.